2 years ago, Elena-Gabriela Ruse denied Alex Eala her first Grand Slam main draw appearance. Tonight, the Filipina sensation returned the favor, with interest. The rematch was over in just 68 minutes, leaving the Romanian star and the entire Cincinnati Open completely stunned. Eala dismantled Ruse 6-2, 6-1 in a performance that showcased everything that has made her one of the most dangerous players on tour. Her clean ball striking, relentless consistency, and ability to dictate play from the baseline left the world number 77 with no answers. The revenge tour continues, and the tennis world is taking notice. Is there anyone who can stop Alex Eala right now? 2 years ago, Elena-Gabriela Ruse stood between Alex Eala and her first Grand Slam main draw appearance, and she slammed the door shut. On Saturday, August 15, 2026, the Filipina returned the favor with devastating interest. The 6-2, 6-1 demolition that followed was more than just a victory. It was revenge. It was redemption. And it was the latest chapter in a revenge tour that has become the defining theme of Eala's remarkable rise. The history between these two players made the rematch deeply personal. At the 2024 U.S. Open qualifiers, Eala was just 19 years old, ranked number 153 in the world, and one win away from her first Grand Slam main draw appearance. She had already fallen in the final qualifying rounds of the French Open and Wimbledon that year, and the pressure was mounting. Ruse, then ranked no. 122, proved too experienced, grinding out a 3-6, 6-1, 6-4 victory that left the young Filipina heartbroken. She battled, clawed, and fought. She was right there in the match, her uncle, former PBA commissioner Alex Eala, wrote at the time. Clearly, she has vastly improved, displaying more power and variety in her shots. Just fell a bit short. 2 years later, the gap has reversed dramatically. Eala has climbed to a career-high world no. 20, capturing her first WTA Tour title at the DC Open and reaching the fourth round of Wimbledon. Ruse, now 28 years old, sits at number 77, a solid player, but no longer the gatekeeper she once was. The numbers told a story of two players heading in opposite directions. But the revenge didn't happen on paper. It happened on the court. The match was over in just 68 minutes. Eala's clean ball striking, relentless consistency, and ability to dictate play from the baseline left the Romanian with no answers. The 6-2, 6-1 scoreline was a statement, not just of victory, but of the transformation that had taken place in the 2 years since their first meeting. The victory continued a remarkable streak. Eala has now defeated each of her last 7 opponents who had previously beaten her, a list that includes Iga Swiatek, Zheng Xinwen, Leylah Fernandez, Jessica Pegula, and Alicia Parks. The revenge tour has become a defining feature of her career, and Ruse was the latest name to be crossed off the list. A tough test awaits, one analysis noted before the match, but Eala is determined to prove she's a different player now. What would you do if the player who denied you your Grand Slam dream stood across the net again? For Alex Eala, the answer was simple. She would show her how much she had changed. She would prove that the girl who fell short in 2024 was no longer the same player. And she would send a message to the entire WTA Tour. Her revenge tour is just getting started. The victory over Ruse was more than just another win. It was closure, it was validation, and it was the perfect launch pad for a deep run at the Cincinnati Open. 2 years ago, Elena-Gabriela Ruse was the gatekeeper. Tonight, Alex Eala is the one who dictates the terms. The rematch between the two players tells a story not just of revenge, but of transformation. The gap in their rankings is the most obvious measure of how much has changed since their 2024 meeting. But it is far from the only one. When they first met in the qualifying rounds of the 2024 U.S. Open, Eala was a promising junior ranked number 153 in the world. She was just 19 years old, still finding her footing on the professional tour, and one match away from her first Grand Slam main draw appearance. The pressure had been building. She had already fallen in the final qualifying rounds of the French Open and Wimbledon that year. Ruse, at number 122, was the more experienced player. The Romanian had been on tour longer, had faced bigger stages, and had the composure that comes with years of professional tennis. When Ruse won 3-6, 6-1, 6-4, She didn't just take a match, she took a dream. Now, 2 years later, the two players are meeting from completely different places. Eala has climbed to a career-high world number 20. She has become the first Filipino in history to win a WTA Tour singles title, capturing the Washington Open with a victory over world No. 3 Jessica Pegula in the final. She has reached the 4th round of Wimbledon, where she defeated defending champion Iga Swiatek on center court. Her record against top 10 opponents is an astonishing 9-4, placing her alongside legends like Steffi Graf, Martina Navratilova, and Monica Seles in the history books. She has established herself among the sport's elite, and she carries that confidence onto every court. Ruse, by contrast, has remained largely stationary. Now 28 years old, the Romanian is ranked No. 77, a modest climb from her position at the time of their first meeting. She has reached as high as number 55 in the world and has proven herself in doubles, reaching Grand Slam semifinals twice. But she has not experienced the meteoric rise that has defined Eala's career. She was never the one to watch. On the Thursday before the Cincinnati rematch, she clobbered Magdalena 6-0, 6-3 to arrange the meeting with Eala. The victory secured her $22,746 in prize money and the chance to face the hottest player on tour. The contrast between the two players' trajectories was stark. Eala was coming off a grueling but triumphant stretch, a Washington title and a 4th-round run in Toronto, where she had fallen to Belinda Bencic. She had been the busiest player on the WTA Tour over the past 2 weeks, playing 8 matches in roughly 12 days, and she had won 7 of them. Her body had been pushed to its limits. But she had also discovered something during that stretch. She could beat anyone. Ruse represented the last ghost from Eala's past. The revenge tour that Eala had embarked on after her Washington title run had already claimed a series of impressive victims. She had avenged losses to Zheng Qinwen, Leylah Fernandez, Elena Svitolina, Naomi Osaka, Jessica Pegula, and Alicia Parks. The streak was remarkable. She had defeated each of her last 7 opponents who had previously beaten her. Now, Ruse was the latest name on that list. A lot of matches can help with your confidence, but it doesn't guarantee anything, Eala would say before the match. She understood that momentum is fragile and that past victories don't win future matches. But she also understood the power of the moment. She was no longer the player who had fallen short 2 years ago. She was the player who had proven she could beat anyone. The rematch at the Cincinnati Open was more than just another match. It was a measuring stick, a chance to see how far Eala had come since the day Ruse denied her a Grand Slam dream. It was a chance to close a chapter that had been open for too long, and it was a chance to send a message to the rest of the WTA Tour. The revenge tour was far from over. She had been here before. The 6-0, 6-3 scoreline that Ruse had just inflicted on Magdalena could have been intimidating. Instead, it was fuel. Because Alex Eala didn't just want to beat Ruse. She wanted to show her how much she had changed. The Romanian had entered the 2nd-round match with the momentum of a dominant first-round performance. She had demolished Poland's Magdalena 6-3 in just over an hour, securing $22,746 in prize money and the right to face the hottest player on tour. Ruse, a 28-year-old veteran who had reached as high as No. 55 in the world and proven herself in doubles with 2 Grand Slam semi-final appearances, was coming off one of her most convincing wins of the tournament. She had every reason to be confident. But Eala was a different player than the one Ruse had faced at the 2024 US Open qualifiers. The gap in their rankings told the story. Eala at a career-high number 20, Ruse at number 77. But rankings don't win matches. What Eala had developed over the past 2 years was something far more valuable: the ability to dominate when it mattered most. She had already defeated each of her last 7 opponents who had previously beaten her. A list that included Iga Swiatek, Zheng Qinwen, Leylah Fernandez, Jessica Pegula, and Alicia Parks. The revenge tour had become a defining feature of her career, and Ruse was the latest name on that list. From the first point, the match belonged to Eala. Her clean ball striking, relentless consistency, and ability to dictate play from the baseline left Ruse with no answers. The 6-2, 6-1 scoreline that followed was not just a victory, it was a statement. The Filipina, who had been denied her first Grand Slam main draw appearance 2 years ago, was now the one dictating terms. A lot of matches can help with your confidence, but it doesn't guarantee anything, Eala had said before the match. She understood that momentum is fragile, and that past victories don't win future matches. But she also understood the power of the moment. She was no longer the player who had fallen short at the US Open qualifiers. She was the player who had proven she could beat anyone. What would you do if the player who denied you your dreams stood across the net again? For Alex Eala, the answer was simple. She would show her how much she had changed. She would prove that the girl who fell short 2 years ago was no longer the same player. And she would send a message to the entire WTA tour. Her revenge tour is just getting started. The victory over Ruse was decisive, the revenge was complete. But for Alex Eala, the Cincinnati Open was only just getting started. And the names waiting for her in the next rounds read like a who's who of women's tennis. With her 6-2, 6-1 statement win, Eala advanced to the third round of the WTA 1000 Cincinnati Open, a tournament that serves as the final major warm-up before the US Open. Her reward? A potential meeting with world number 10 Amanda Anisimova, the American home favorite, who has been playing some of the best tennis of her career on hard courts. But Anisimova is just the first hurdle. If Eala finds a way past the American, a much steeper climb awaits. Wimbledon champion Linda Noskova looms as a potential fourth-round opponent. The same Noskova who has beaten Eala twice this season, including a 6-2, 6-4 defeat in the Berlin Open semifinals and a 6-2, 6er rout at Indian Wells. The Czech star has been a persistent obstacle in Eala's path, and a third meeting would be the ultimate test of how much the Filipina has grown since those defeats. Beyond Noskova, the draw only gets more intimidating. A quarterfinal berth could set up a rematch against Jessica Pegula, the world no. 3, whom Eala defeated in the Washington Open final just weeks ago. That victory was the crowning achievement of Eala's breakout summer, but Pegula will be hungry for revenge on a different surface and with a Grand Slam just around the corner. The semifinals could feature Iga Swiatek or Elena Rybakina, 2 players who have dominated the WTA Tour for years. Yet for Greg Rusedski, the 1997 US Open finalist who has been watching Eala's rise closely, the identity of her opponent has become almost irrelevant. Why should she care whether she's playing an Anisimova, whoever's in the section? Rusedski said on his podcast. Look at the people she beat to win Washington. It was world-class players from start to finish. He pointed to Eala's ability to handle the physical and emotional toll of her recent run as proof that she can handle anyone. Then she goes to Toronto running on fumes and emotions and still wins a couple of matches as well, Rusedski said. So, I'm not worried about it. She competes, she fights, she's so mentally tough that it doesn't matter who's in her way. The numbers back up his confidence. Eala now owns 9 victories over top 10 opponents, a 9-4 record that places her alongside legends like Steffi Graf, Martina Navratilova, and Monica Seles in the history books. She has already beaten 6 of the world's top 10 players this season, including world number 3 Jessica Pegula in the DC Open final. The names on her resume no longer intimidate her. She has proven she can compete with and beat anyone. What would you do if you had already beaten the world's best and the only thing standing in your way was more of the same? For Alex Eala, the answer was simple. She would keep fighting, keep believing, and keep proving that the girl with ruffled socks and light-up shoes was destined for greatness. Because she knew that the loaded draw in Cincinnati was not a threat. It was an opportunity. The ticket center crashed, the match was moved, and fans plan entire reunions just to see her play. But what's happening in Cincinnati is about far more than one tournament. It's about a movement that has taken over tennis, and it shows no signs of slowing down. The phenomenon that began in Washington, exploded in Toronto, and arrived in Cincinnati has become something that even the most seasoned tennis observers cannot ignore. Carlos Alcaraz, one of the biggest draws in the sport, was stunned by what he witnessed. Tournament director Bob Moran, who had seen Federer, Nadal, and Serena Williams pack stadiums for decades, admitted he had never seen anything like this. And the fans? They were driving 8 hours from Toronto, planning college reunions, and crashing ticket systems. All for a 21-year-old from Quezon City. The Filipino community had turned a tennis tournament into a homecoming. In Toronto, the 12,500-seat Sobeys Stadium had been transformed into Little Manila. Eala had called it Barangay Toronto. Now, the same community that had packed the stands, waved Philippine flags, and chanted, "Laban Alex!" at the top of their lungs was doing it all over again in Ohio. "It's an amazing experience," Eala said ahead of the tournament. "It's nice to see that the Filipino community is really showing up and enjoying tennis. Hopefully, it will help grow the sport as well and, in the end, give them something new and joyful experience." The movement that began with a single player has become something much larger. It's about representation. It's about a diaspora finding its voice on the world's biggest stages. It's about children seeing a Filipina compete and win against some of the biggest names in tennis. And it's about a 21-year-old who knows exactly what it means to carry that love with her on the court. What would you do if you had turned a tennis tournament into a cultural phenomenon? For Alex Eala, the answer was simple. She would keep fighting, keep inspiring, and keep proving that the girl with ruffled socks and light-up shoes was just getting started. Because she knew that the movement was about more than tennis. It was about a community finding its voice. And that was something no ticket system could ever contain.